It has been a week since the UPS plane crashed in Louisville, and in the days since, we have learned more about the victims, the survivors, and the heroes that ran toward the flames.
It is a tragedy that will not be forgotten in this city. Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg joins us now. Thank you so much for being here, Mayor. I can't let this moment pass us. It is now 5:31, a week after Tuesday, so 15 minutes after this plane crash. Where were you? What was going through your mind? How did you find out that this was happening in your city?
It was actually a rare day for me where I was not in Louisville. When I started getting texts immediately, some pictures of fire and a couple different theories as to what happened, and I immediately left what I was doing, hopped on the phone, first called the fire chief, ultimately got a hold of the director of our emergency management agencies, who was in his car racing towards the scene. And so within minutes I was on the phone with everyone and began to make my way back to the city, which I was able to do, staying in touch the whole way and really relying on those initial moments after a tragedy like this. It's important to let the first responders do their job that they're trained for. And so that's what we were letting them do while trying to get information out to the community that everyone was so desperately seeking.
I'm sure you had a sinking feeling in your stomach like all of us did when we saw some of those images. We know the NTSB is still on site investigating. First off, how often are you in contact with them? And then second of all, do you have an update on where their investigation stands today?
So our team is, I talk to them every couple of days, but folks from our emergency management agencies are in touch with the NTSB every day. They're very involved in their daily briefings and staying up to date and seeing what we can do to support their investigation, and also working with them to shrink the restricted areas so that businesses can get back to business. We know that many livelihoods depend on around there, but we need to make sure everything is safe. And so that's our first and primary focus, is public safety, which we're focused on.
And so is there a timeline yet or a working goal for when the crash site will reopen?
Well, again, I think you'll see that still restricted for quite a while. We're focused right now on, can we get Grade Lane open, because there are a lot of businesses alongside there that did have impact from the crash, but we're working to make sure that it's clean and that it's safe as well, so that businesses can relocate there. I don't have an exact timeline on that yet, though.
I think are you talking days, weeks?
Well, I think
maybe
NTSB will be in town for definitely several more days, maybe even longer, depending on how long that they need in certain areas. But when people can get all the way to the crash site, I don't have, that might still be a while. Our goal is to work on getting Grade Lane back open.
And because it's shut down right now, you know, there are wide-reaching effects of this. The 14 families at least who we know are directly impacted by this, but then those who cannot get back to their businesses and places of work. Yesterday you mentioned that the city would have an assistance line for anyone who was impacted by this crash. Just in the last 10 minutes, Metro government has released that information. The phone number 502-473 5271. This line will be open from 6 to 9 tonight, and then from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. The question is, what resources are going to be available there? You have folks that haven't been able to work and are coming into Thanksgiving. Are financial assistance resources going to be available when you call this line?
Yeah, so several things. I mean, UPS and the government, we want to know who has been impacted, so that if there are financial resources available to help them, those we know who is in need. If people need help signing up, if somebody has lost their job, we want to be able to help them sign up for unemployment in addition to other resources. If people are struggling with some mental health issues, we want to be able to help them get the professional help that people following a trauma like this need. Medical care, if they're looking for other help as well. Depending on people's circumstances, everyone might need something different. So this is going to be a broad range to help everyone with their individual personalized needs.
The big nugget may be for some folks financial resources.
That's
we know the Team Kentucky Fund was restarted. Is that going to be funneled through this line? Are there city dollars available? Is the Community Foundation being a partner in this? People want to know, is there financial help if I can't get to work and I can't get a check?
Yeah, so I can't, depending on someone's circumstance, I can't promise any of that yet, and I do believe that some of those corporate entities involved in this crash will ultimately be making payments to everyone, not just people who had somebody deceased. But we're going to find other resources that we can, and there's been a lot of generosity through the foundation, so that's all the stuff that we're working on right now.
Okay.
And Mayor, you have been asked about a public memorial to honor all the victims of this plane crash. Have you personally spoken to family members of all the victims, and would they be, do you think, interested in something like this?
So I met with some of the victims' families, of course, the night of the crash, and then on Sunday night I was out with the Grade A Auto Parts family as they had a gathering for those who were impacted, the victims' families, their employees that were there, some of whom are heroes that literally saved lives by being on site and helping others. We've been waiting to have the complete list of all of the victims before we start planning that. I want to understand what the families want to make sure it's consistent with their wishes as well. I'm hopeful that tomorrow we'll be able to publicly release all of the names of the victims following notification of the families. The coroner has been working extremely hard to get DNA results back as quick as possible to make that happen. I'm hoping tomorrow, and then we'll begin to turn our attention to that, some type of public healing event.
Yeah, we're just getting ready to ask about that because we've seen some families start to say that
Right.
their loved one has been identified online. Talk to me about what has gone into being able to identify the people from the wreckage.
In speaking with the coroner, Joanne Farmer, this has been one of the most challenging cases because of the conditions that the bodies were in. And I don't want to get into too many graphics. People can understand, though, given the high intensity of the heat and the flame, the condition that bodies must have been in. So they've needed to rely on DNA. That requires getting family DNA samples, sending out the samples from the deceased, and then doing some matching up. And so families have begun to be notified right now. And again, my hope is that all of them will be notified so that tomorrow we can make an announcement of all 14 of the victims, some of whom, as you mentioned, have already been identified.
At your press briefing this morning, you talked about expecting to be fully reimbursed for any damaged fire equipment or gear. Where is that money coming from?
We're working on that right now. We think there are a couple of avenues for that reimbursement, so I don't want to get ahead of it because we've been having some conversations, but we will certainly disclose. I do believe we will be reimbursed, and so we're talking to some private companies about that right now.
There are some lawsuits that are already in the process of being filed or are filed. Does the city plan to take any legal action against UPS, GE, or Boeing in regards to this crash?
You know, at this time we're looking, our attorneys are looking at all of our available remedies. We don't have any intention right now, but that's certainly something we want to make sure that we are getting reimbursed for the damages that the city had as well. But right now our primary focus is on the victims and their families, on the recovery, on the site containing any damage, reopenings for other businesses as well, and we'll have ample time to make sure that the city is protected in due course.
Have you learned anything from this crash where you think that changes need to be made moving forward in the city?
You know, I'm waiting for the full, complete investigation, and then I'm going to rely on the experts about what happened, what caused this, where it happened, and then we'll take that information under consideration. Right now, I'm not aware of anything that I've learned that will cause us to change anything the way that we do business. Hopefully, there's certainly lessons to be learned for the aviation industry from whatever the cause of this tragic crash was that they can learn from to prevent this from ever happening again.
From a very human level, you've spoken to a lot of people. I'm sure it's been a very busy week. What is the most impactful thing that you have heard in the last week after this crash?
Really, the most impactful thing that I've heard were some of the stories on Sunday night I heard from some of the survivors of their reactions when they were in a building that had just been, part of the building had exploded, when they literally were inches away from where a fireball had just exploded, when they saw colleagues that had been burned and they were able to grab them and throw them in vehicles and transport them to EMS and meet them so they were able to get to a hospital sooner. Other ways that they survived, that they helped some of their colleagues make sure that they were running the right way away from the flames to make sure that their colleagues were accounted for. In these horrible tragedies, I try to find areas of hope, reasons for all of us to have faith as we move forward and to find strength to move forward following these tragedies. And I heard lots of those stories Sunday night, meeting with survivors and employees at Grade A Auto Parts.
Mayor Craig Greenberg, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you all.